Thank you and good morning. My presentation, as you know, is on working with a consortium. Where do I go?
Just use the arrows, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
I would first of all like to tell you a bit about higher education in Ghana, move on to their funding issues, and then talk about our consortium of academic and research libraries, and then finally to talk about our experience with working with publishers. It's been good, it's been very good, it's been flat. We attained independence in 1957, and the priority then was that higher education was to be the key to develop the country, because there was a human resource gap at the time of independence. So we were in search of a model that will meet the citizens' expectations and the expectations of the country, the needs of the country. So 3 key issues that the first president decided to use, and that was to use education as a tool. First, to have a scientifically literate population. Secondly, to tackle environmental causes of productivity and poverty. And thirdly, to provide knowledge to harness economic development. At the time, we had only 2 tertiary institutions at the time of independence. In the last couple of years, in the last decade, there has been a phenomenal growth in tertiary education. We have 3 colleges of education, 11 nursing training institutions, 38 colleges of education, 10 polytechnics across all the regions, 10 public universities, of which 9 are members of the consortium, and 63 private universities, of which 21 are members of the consortium. And the list keeps growing. This gives the impression that there's a high demand for tertiary education. But of course, there is an imbalance between access to higher education and then the number of people who want to get access to higher education. The core issue has been lack of adequate funding at all levels. Since 1948, when the University College of the Gold Coast, now University of Ghana, was established, government had been the sole funder of tertiary education. It continues to do that. For some time now, expenditure in higher education has continued to dwindle from about $6,000 in 1980 to about $1,200 in 2000, and it continues to go down. This leads to underperformance of tertiary education as a tool for development, as we said at independence. Now, in the 1980s, there was this economic recovery program that government now focused more on the primary education sector, the basic education sector, as against the tertiary education sector that at the time of independence we decided to look at. There is, of course, a huge financing gap over the last 5 years. And this, I got it from the National Council of Tertiary Education. 39.7% in 2011, and 2015, 41%. 2012, a huge gap, because normally 2012, that was an election year. So basically, excess demand for infrastructure so that the government can show, I've put up so many schools, put up so many, but it doesn't go to the libraries. This, for us, is lack of discipline in budgeting processes. Now, let's turn our attention to CARLIGH, the consortium. And I want to just give you a bit of background. In the 80s and the 1990s, there was an economic turndown, and this affected funding for the libraries. It affected human resource growth and development. We had serious problems with access to and delivery of relevant information. You go to your libraries, you have old books, journals, and the librarians were just affected by that. But then in 1993, ILDD, Interlibrary Lending and Document Delivery section of EIFL, had a discussion, and the issue was this, that there is a huge gap in developing countries and developed countries as far as scholarly journals and e-resources were concerned. So the issue was this, that why don't we approach development partners to assist in this manner? Fortunately, Danida took it up, and in 1996, after a series of meetings, decided to support us. So we had an informal cooperative network called the GuildNet, Ghana Interlibrary Lending and Document Delivery Network. Supported us through training, providing access to e-resources. And in 2002, gave INASP some funding to access online databases, 8 of them at that time. This brought some life into an otherwise collapsing library system in the country. But then at the same time, in 2002, we were informed that Danida funding will cease in 2004. So the issue is, are we going back to the 1980s or the 1990s, where the libraries will be empty, where researchers will be looking for literature? So the idea of a consortium came to mind. And that is when we started thinking. So in July of 2003, with the support of Danida, 8 public university libraries, including my institute, decided to come together for a day's meeting to look at the possibility of forming a consortium to provide access to e-resources and other support services for the libraries. So finally, CARLIGH was formed in August 2004. And before then, there was marketing advocacy as far as the issues are concerned with the vice chancellors, with them as individuals and as a group, the Committee of Vice Chancellors, Ghana, to have the necessary buy-in so that we will be provided with the necessary support, financial, technical, and otherwise, when the consortium gets on the ground. So for us as a consortium, we have the mandate of the vice chancellors, the research directors, to negotiate on behalf of the member institutions. It is open to academic research libraries, open to polytechnics. We have 38 full and affiliate members. E-resources subscriptions are shared equally. And there is a 3-tier governance structure of an advisory board, a governing council, and a management committee, of which I chair. And there are 5 working groups, basically to deal with e-resources negotiations, training, and advocate for increased funding for the libraries. We've been working with publishers. We've been supported by INASP from about the mid-2000. And for us, we think that access to e-resources has improved teaching, learning, and research. And our view is that this should continue from now and into the future. And we are looking at affordable rates on a continuing basis. We think that we cannot continue to depend on donors for support. We think that we should be able to afford what we use, but it should be within our means. So our view is that CARLIGH and the publishers, we should engage responsibly in our negotiations so that together we will have a win-win situation. We are aware that as publishers, you are in business for good returns, no doubt about that. And we also think that good returns can only come when your resources are used and used widely. So we think that engaging you responsibly in this kind of situation will lead to a win-win situation. You will have your products and services being bought. We will have the resources that will help us in our research and development activities. Again, we think that you need to understand the country situation and the way the consortium works. I study philosophy, so I don't know economics. But I think that the economists will always say that, oh, GDP growth, this and that and that and that. But our people say that these numbers do not reflect in our pocket. So we are saying that just understand the country situation, the politics of the countries that you work in. We believe that we understand it better than you do. And we think that once we engage responsibly, we will be better placed to move our, both the publishers and the academics forward. We've had some hiccups working with publishers. And these are just a few examples to give you. That in one instance, when INASP was negotiating on our behalf, we had a certain figure that we worked with, which we felt very comfortable with. But then as soon as the negotiations came into our hand, it tripled. So let's say that if we were paying $10, £10, now it comes to $30, £30, which for us is too steep. Others hiked the prices and decided not to work with the consortium, but with individual institutions. Negotiations stalled in all these instances, and we withdrew quietly. The end result was this, that we lost the use of the resources, and the publishers also lost some revenue. We think that this should not continue to happen, because we've been in a situation of the 1980s, and we don't want to go back to 1980. We want to move forward. So our view is that let us think together, and let us work together. Between 2011 and 2015, there has been an average increase in price of about 3% increase. In some instances, the resources did not increase. Members do appreciate the gradual increase, which is predictable, and they can plan and plan well for that. But then when we have a situation where publishers come and say that for next year there will be 30% plus increase in price, it throws our budget out of gear. And our view is that this 30% increase may be good by northern standards, but for us in the south, this would not be good for us. There is this example that I want to give, which for us we feel very sad that it did happen. One of our members got donor funding to get a resource that almost all the consortium members wanted to have. And the consortium were negotiating to get this off. But then the university went straight, because it got donor funding, to buy that resource. Members felt let down. It gave the impression that the consortium had money but was refusing to pay. It stalls our effort at sustainable access to e-resources, because we want to continue to use the resource. We don't want to create any gap. Donor fund finished. The university paid for a year and realized that we cannot continue. It's not sustainable. So they've had a rethink. Since I took the chair in 2013, we've been discussing to move the system forward. For us, we think that this should have happened a long time ago. On the 2nd of July, there's supposed to be a planned meeting between our consortium and the publisher, called the National Partnership Meeting, to look at partnership framework to enhance R&D, international visibility, and impact of Ghana's academic and scientific community. We think that this kind of meeting should include all publishers. So we sit together, we think through the issues, and move forward. our view is that we require partnership from you. We should discuss the issues in good faith, exchange best practices and knowledge to achieve successful partnership. Once you have successful partnership, there will be continuity. You are assured that, yes, you will get your money, however small, but on a continuing basis. You may get a big one that will be for just one season. We are looking for continuous use of your resources and long-term. For us, once we come to an agreement, there is payment in good time. Once we agree, by December, you get your money. You don't need to remind us. No elaborate accounting procedures and all that. Once the consortium agrees, no auditing procedures, no long auditing procedures and all that. You get your money and get it in good time. We've learned a few lessons working with you. What we have realized is this, that good, I will rush through. The proposals that you submit to the respective individuals, you are not likely to get subscriptions. But we think that once you come through us, we will do it. We've also realized that from our end, we need to improve on our ICT infrastructure to be able to cope with you. We've also observed that high usage with publishers whose platforms are simple to navigate and are user-friendly. We know that you are profit-oriented, but we are asking you to be flexible in increasing your prices. These are the issues that we say we should consider for the way forward. But importantly, one of the things that our members have been asking for is that let us discuss more on e-books. We think that partnership between the publishers and users is key, so every effort should be made to maintain it for mutual benefit. In conclusion, I will say that let us not revisit the issues of 1980s. The best approach for us will be to engage the consortium constructively in an open and transparent manner. Understand the country situation and work for better results for both parties. This is our time of need, and we think that if you are our friend today, we will forever remember you when our condition improves. For us, we think that the librarians and the publishers are natural partners, and we should not let price separate us. Thank you very much.